Farage. At 8, join Mark Stein. And at 9, Dan Wootton Tonight, followed by headliners. On TV, radio and online, this is GB News.
Join me, Lawrence Fox, on GB News. Frank, fun, fearless and sometimes serious. Much as I love a Friday night punch-up, what I really want is a battle of ideas. I want to look at things differently. I want to hear different voices and engage with your unique experiences. Every Friday at 7 p.m. on GB News.
Hello, I'm Esther McVeigh.
And I'm Philip Davis.
Whether you're watching or listening on TV, online or on radio, we handpick the latest stories, debates and expert opinions for your weekend. So whether that's politics, news or showbiz, we've got it covered.
Join us every Saturday morning at 10 o'clock on GB News.
Hello, I'm Michelle Dewberry and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr. Me and my panel will get stuck right into the day's events and I can tell you, in fact, I can warn you, expect some robust debates, some strong opinions and perspectives from both sides of the fence. It's about you at home as well. I love to read out all of your comments, or at least as many as I can. So join me, Michelle Dewberry, Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr.
I'm Mark Dolan. Join me at 11 on GB News for Headliners, in which I'll be joined by two of the UK's top comedians discussing tomorrow's papers. If it's an important story, we'll cover it, but we'll have some fun along the way. Headliners, the late night paper review that won't send you to sleep like the others will. 7 nights a week at 11 p.m. on GB News.
Monday to Thursday on GB News, it's Bev Turner Today from 10 a.m. We're going to be here for you, our GB News family, to keep you up to date, but also make you smile.
The guy went from puberty to adultery.
And I can't wait to bring a few of my own opinions.
I have no time for cultural totalitarianism.
We'll engage in passionate, but always polite debate, with your thoughts and opinions at the centre of it all. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Mark White. As GB News Home and Security Editor, I cover those key issues that are so important to you. Our authorities, our communities doing all they can to combat violent crime. With the public services under unbearable strain, why are we still failing to control our borders? Defence, the first priority of any government, has been continually hollowed out. Can we trust our politicians to protect the armed forces? Join me, Mark White, on GB News.
Very good morning. Welcome to Bev Turner Today on GB News. I hope you're having a decent week. It could be worse. You could be King Charles on the day that your previously well-liked son launches a warts and all expose on your family. We have sharp-eyed TV critics and royal experts watching the Meghan and Harry doc as we speak, so you don't have to. Stay tuned to see what they make of it. Also this morning, I'm going to be joined in the studio by the Ukrainian MP, Kira Rudik, to discuss the aid that the UK is giving to her country and find out where it all goes. That's all coming up after a look at the latest news with Beth.
Bev, thank you. Hello there. Good morning. It's 1 minute past 10. I'm Bethany Elsey, here to bring you up to date from the GB newsroom. The government has defended its decision to open the first UK coal mine in 30 years, saying they still intend to phase out coal. Levelling Up Secretary Michael Gove has given the green light for the new colliery in Whitehaven in Cumbria. Former COP26 President Alok Sharma has labelled the decision a backward step for UK climate action. But Cabinet Minister Gillian Keegan says it will create hundreds of jobs and insists the coal will be used for the production of steel and not for power generation.
There's a lot of local support for this. There's a lot of jobs that it will bring, both direct and indirect. And it's very, very specific. It is not for energy. It is specifically coking coal to make steel. And by the way, to meet our net zero targets, we will need a lot of steel to make the wind turbines or the nuclear power station, etc. So the choice of, the source of supply of this coking coal is either that mine or importing it from somewhere else.
Well, Shadow Climate Secretary Ed Miliband says the move is a terrible decision.
Opening a new coal mine marks the death knell for any claims this government has to climate leadership, and it won't provide the sustainable jobs we need. We should be going full pelt for the clean, green jobs of the future. But Rishi Sunak is so weak, being pushed around by his backbenchers, that he just can't deliver.
In the first episode of the Duke and Duchess of Sussex new docuseries, the couple say they want to challenge misinformation around why they stood down as senior royals. Prince Harry said he was concerned for the safety of his family and felt it was his duty to uncover what he described as bribery within the UK media. The documentary features the couple's first-hand account, personal archive videos and interviews with friends, which were all filmed before the Queen's death. Members of the royal family have declined to comment on the series. Well, in episode 1, the couple talk about their first date.
I was panicking, I was freaking out, I started sweating.
Again, I didn't know him, so I was like, oh, is this what he does? Got it. Like, this I'm not doing. I'm not gonna sit.
What was that supposed to mean?
Like one of the guys who's so much of an ego that that any girl would sit around and wait for a half hour for you. And I was just not interested in that.
And then when I walked in, a hot, sweaty, red ball of mash, she's like, oh, that's not what you want.
That's not what you
I'm
are.
so
You genuinely
sorry.
were like so embarrassed and late.
Unions are calling on the government to engage in meaningful talks amid a wave of public sector strikes. People wanting to travel over the Christmas period are being warned of travel disruption after Border Force staff have announced industrial action. Chaos is expected from the 23rd of December to New Year's Eve. Rail workers, postal staff, nurses and paramedics are already planning to strike in the coming weeks. The Prime Minister has promised tough new laws to limit the disruption. The Shadow Chancellor will tell industry chiefs that Labour is back in business at a party conference later today. Speaking in front of business leaders in Canary Wharf, Rachel Reeves will unveil plans which Labour say will make the UK the high-growth start-up hub of the world. The party is expected to announce business growth as one of the guiding ambitions of the next Labour government. The first coins with the official effigy of King Charles III will appear in circulation in post offices from today. The King's portrait will first feature on the 50p coin with the tail side commemorating the life and legacy of his mother, Queen Elizabeth. 4.9 million coins will enter circulation across thousands of post office branches throughout this month. And Dyson have released their first pair of noise-cancelling headphones with an air-purifying visor. The tech firm says the device was created in response to data which shows 1 in 5 people in the EU are affected by noise pollution and that 99% of the world's population live in areas with unsafe levels of pollution. The Zone headphones will set you back £749 and are expected to go on sale in the UK in March. This is GB News, you're up to date. We'll bring you more news as it happens. Now let's get back to Bev.
Very good morning. Welcome to Bev Turner today here on GB News. This is what we've got for the next 2 hours. The docuseries Harry and Meghan was released on Netflix about 2 hours ago. Covered in controversy, the trailer was accused of using misleading clips to distort reality. And I don't know about you, but it does seem a bit hypocritical to crave privacy whilst doing a fly-on-the-wall documentary. We've got royal experts watching it, so you don't have to, and we'll get their thoughts on it throughout the show. I'm also going to be joined in the studio by Ukrainian MP Kira Rudik. She's in London speaking to MPs about the challenges Ukraine faces in 2023. But with the UK being the second largest military donor to the Ukraine, committing £2.3 billion this year, can we afford to keep doing this whilst our NHS staff strike for a pay rise? Ex-Health Secretary Matt Hancock has said that he will not be standing as an MP at the next general election, but shouldn't he go immediately? That's one of the topics I'm going to be tackling with my news guests this morning. And of course, I will try to get to as many of your messages as I can. GBViews at gbnews.uk. We've got a Twitter poll going as well. I'm asking you whether Harry and Meghan should be stripped of their royal titles after this docuseries goes out this week. Email me, gbviews@gbnews.uk, and with your opinion on anything else that we're discussing. Well, who'd have thought that the biggest threat to our royal family would come from within the royal family? It's finally here. The Harry and Meghan docuseries is available to watch on Netflix as of this morning. The first 3 episodes have been released. The final 3 will be released on the 15th of December. This show is co-produced by the Sussexes, and it's their chance to tell their side of the story. So they say. They've said that a lot, haven't they? Let's cross now to our royal reporter, Cameron Walker, who's watching it all for us in a luxurious cinema this morning. Good morning, Cameron, in our reaction room. This is like Gogglebox. It's like Regal Box. Maybe that's what we should be calling it this morning, Cameron. What have you watched so far, and what's your insight to date? Now, what time is it? 10 o'clock. How many episodes have you got through?
Well, I've got through 2, Bev. Welcome to GB News' Royal Reaction Room. Of course, a lot of it so far has been about Prince Harry's relationship with the media, actually, rather than his own family. You remember from the trailer, he talked about it being a dirty game. He accused about leaking. He talked about planting of stories. But 3 crucial points which I've picked out here, the first of which is Prince Harry's belief about his personal relationships, as in his romantic relationships, and how the press essentially tried to ruin that, or what Prince Harry is alluding to there. So let's take a look about what he said for that.
Paparazzi used to harass us to the point of where we had to be forced into smiling and answering questions to the travelling press pack.
Could you look at this camera, please? Just look at this one. I've got a limit.
And that made me feel really uncomfortable from the get-go.
Can you look this way? Hello.
You're right, easy. Bitches, you're right.
Hello. Can we do something different?
And then the deal was we put our skis on, and then they'd then leave us alone. Well, yeah, some of them would. But then the other ones would just then follow us around, either taking photographs or waiting for an accident to happen and then put out their cameras. So it was never fair, it never worked.
Well, Prince Harry there talking about being on a ski holiday and struggling with the royal press pack, and a couple of the photographers were not sticking to the rules. But I'm joined with by royal historian Rafe Hadel-Manku, who's been watching it alongside me here in this cinema in central London. Rafe, Prince Harry's relationship with the media over the years perhaps has changed, but it seems to have stemmed from his early childhood memories, doesn't it?
Yes, I mean, undoubtedly. Firstly, of course, when they were trying to have tender moments with which his mother really wanted to ensure that they had as normal an upbringing as possible. The media intrusion then, of course, was very disturbing to somebody who was a very shy person, but particularly, of course, in the aftermath of the death of his mother. But the paparazzi of today are nothing like they were back in his mother's time. And quite frankly, there's no such thing as a free lunch. As a member of the royal family, it comes with extreme privilege and some annoyances. And one of those, of course, is the fact that you have to deal with media intrusion. It's something that his brother understands. His parents had to go through it, his uncles have gone through it, and it's quite interesting actually that if you watch this documentary, you never get the impression that there was any positive news about Prince Harry or about Meghan. It's almost as if every news story was negative. They remind me of actors who get 1,000 positive reviews but only remember the one negative review.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting, isn't it? He talks about kind of perhaps one of the burdens of being in the royal family, particularly following his mother's death in 1997, and the fact he had to have 2 hats on. He had his personal life and his royal life. So let's take a look at what Prince Harry said about his mother's death.
When my mum died, we had 2 hats to wear. One was 2 grieving sons wanting to cry, grieve, and process that grief because of losing our mum. And 2 was the royal hat, show no emotion, get out there, meet the people, shake the hands.
Rafe, it was a struggle for both Prince William and Prince Harry at that time. How do you think, from watching Prince Harry on the screen here, what's his reaction been like to that and the memory of his mother?
Well, of course, look, the whole world really had Harry and William in their hearts in 1997, and Harry has enjoyed 2 decades of positivity and warmth and goodwill from the nation and the public in order to ensure that he does have a healthy life. But we're talking about 25 years ago. We've all had tragedies in our lives, and we've all managed to move on. What this documentary really shows me are 2 people who've got a lot of free time on their hand, and the more free time you have, the more you tend to fret and ponder and fester your attentions on things like these tragedies which need to be put to bed.
Rafe, for the moment, thank you. Well, Bev, in half an hour's time, we're going to be talking about what Prince Harry believes is the palace's reaction to the treatment of Meghan by the press when it was revealed that he was in a relationship with her. And also, he talks about what he sees as the mistakes of his mother and father when they were going through their divorce.
OK, thank you, Cameron. Cameron there watching this. And you know what? You might be a little bit nonplussed about this. You might be saying, well, it's just a TV programme. It isn't a TV programme because the implications of this for the royal family could be immense. Right, let's talk now to legendary TV and film critic, Catherine Flett, who joins me now. Catherine, what a joy to have you here this morning to give us your take on this series. You've been watching it since 8 o'clock this morning. What are your thoughts?
Well, first off, it's riveting. You know, it's beautifully made as a bit of telly. So wearing my TV critic hat, I can say that, you know, they've done a fantastic job. Obviously, it's co-produced with Netflix, with Archewell, the couple's own production company. And in terms of telling their story, they're doing an extremely good job. As to the veracity of that story, well, you know, their truth is their truth. There's 2 sides, and in this case, many more than 2 sides to every story. But as telly, beautifully done, beautifully put together, absolutely fascinating. This is a relationship that was documented literally from the word go. I think they even include a selfie that they took on their second date. So in terms of pouring their hearts and souls into it, there has never been such a well-documented relationship as this one. And it strikes me that from the very beginning, they were very keen to make sure that they had any evidence they might need. It's a narrative that was almost set up from the start.
Interesting. That is really interesting. It does sort of make a mockery, though, Catherine, doesn't it, of the fact that their complaint throughout this series is we have been the victims of too much press attention, and our response to that is to give you every detail of our life and our text messages and our selfies. As a viewer, how do you square that apparent hypocrisy?
You can't. You can't. You know, you can watch it as TV and think this is a riveting insight into people's lives. I mean, no, you know, there's stuff here that makes the Kardashians look shy and retiring. I mean, it's just relentless. But underpinning the sort of televisual spectacular, if you like, is the narrative this couple has constructed. Now, I mean, you know, what comes across very strongly, and they were very keen to get across, is that theirs is a love story. And my gosh, these are 2 people who are bonkers about each other. And actually, bonkers might be the key word in a way. I mean, this is an almost obsessively codependent relationship. And look, I'm not a qualified psychotherapist, but I've had a bit of therapy over the years. I'm a little bit older than Harry and Meghan, and I think I've learned a few things en route. So I may not have letters after my name, but I think I'm qualified to say that these are 2 people whose relationship is as much about need as it is about want. They're trying to heal each other. There's a whole load of stuff going on here that psychotherapists would have a field day with. And in fact, you know, they're going to make psychotherapists of us all because of the amount of information they've given us. We're all entitled to have a fairly informed opinion now.
Yeah, how interesting. Have you seen so far, Catherine, any actual bombshells that might be damaging to King Charles, to Camilla, to William, to Kate? Or so far, is it mainly about their loving?
No, what we've got going on at the moment, and I'm halfway through the second episode, is the meet cute, as they say. So the meet cute, if you're making a TV show, is where the protagonists, the couple, meet and fall in love. And what we have is very much a meet cute. These are two very cute people, and we know all about how they fell in love, almost from the word go. I think next week, in the next 3 hours, we're going to get the meet as opposed to the meet cute. So I think you're going to get a lot more information about the family, the royal family, next week. What we're having at the moment is a lot of intercutting with shots of other members of the royal family looking utterly miserable all the time. So, for instance, there's a bit where Harry talks about, the women who marry into this, he doesn't say terrible family, but, that's the inference, and, how tough it is for them. Cut to a picture of now Queen Camilla, now the Princess of Wales, and Sophie Wessex, all standing on a balcony looking faces like thunder. You could read it, but actually anyone who's British can see they're wearing poppies. It's Remembrance Day. It's not the most smiling occasions. They're looking somber and respectful. But because of the way the photo has been dumped into the middle of this other narrative, the editing is very clever. The editing is going to back up this story of sort of mass victimhood.
I was just going to say, I was just going to say, it's almost like he's casting all the women in this family as victims, which does not therefore paint the royal family as anything other than this slightly malevolent spectre in the background, doesn't it?
Yes, I mean, he has his story, his agenda, and this is it is possible to feel a great deal of empathy, particularly for him, and his awkward childhood, and the fact that his mother is on a pedestal, and she can never fall from that pedestal because she's no longer with us. So he's carrying an awful lot of pain, and that's clear. But as an adult, and let's face it, he's knocking on the door of middle age. It's your responsibility to deal with that shit. Yeah. Forgive my language. We all have our crosses to bear. His cross is particularly painful and publicly borne, but it's up to him as an adult, particularly now as a father, to heal himself. So that's one story. But the subtext also, this sort of talking about the other members of the royal family, is that this is literally, a living hell. If you're a woman in this family, you marry in and suffer the consequences. Well, I think that the difference, one of the many differences between Kate and Meghan is that Kate spent a decade learning the ropes. And I think that, she put in the hours. She got a lot of stick for not having a proper job, for all sorts of stuff over that time before she became engaged. But actually, I think she was probably being trained up by her husband-to-be, who was giving her lots of opportunities to get out if she wanted to. You know, people aren't stupid. That nobody forced Sophie Wessex to marry Edward. She also went through some problems. But actually, as you're a grown-up, you learn to cope with stuff. And of course, for those of us looking in, we wouldn't want to be harassed by paparazzi every minute of the day. But at the same time, they're not. That's the end. They're not. They lead lives of extraordinary privilege.
Yeah, absolutely. And it is interesting, even from the little that we've learned this morning, it's interesting how William was much more at peace with that deal, that cost benefit of being as part of the royal family, whereas it looks like Harry never came to terms with that. Catherine Flett, thank you so much for joining us this morning. I'm sure you'll be writing about this on your Substack. And next time you come on, don't swear, please. Apologies to anybody who was upset by Catherine Flett using the S word there. Apologies for that. Now, sticking with the theme, don't forget to vote in our poll on Twitter. We are asking you, should Harry and Meghan be stripped now of their official royal titles for this docuseries? Cast your vote. Should the Duke and Duchess of Sussex be back to just being Harry and Meghan? Let me know what you think. Now, as always, send me your emails as well, gbviews@gbnews.uk. OK, after the break, I'm going to be joined by my guests for the first time this morning. We've got the writer Sam Ashworth-Hayes and journalist Emma Burnell. That's after this quick break.
Hello, I'm Alex Deakin, and this is your latest weather update from the Met Office. It's cold out there, and it's staying cold even into next week. For many, though, it's a sunny Thursday, a few wintry showers here and there. And wherever we've got any showers, it could be icy. We've got northerly winds. That's the reason it's turned cold, and they're sticking around. Not particularly strong, for most of the winds are quite light, but where those winds are coming into northern Scotland, we've got plenty more snow showers to come through the rest of the day. We'll see a few wintry showers over southeast Scotland, northeast England this afternoon. Snow here mostly on the hills, and a few scattered showers just grazing West Wales, Cornwall and northern parts of Northern Ireland, again with some snow mixed in over high ground. For the vast majority, it's just dry, sunny and cold. 3 or 4. It feels colder in the wind across the north, but actually temperatures in the southwest may get up to 5 or 6. Pretty quickly, though, this evening, the map turns blue. A frost returns once more. A few more of those wintry showers, perhaps a covering of snow in places across parts of northeast England, again mostly over hills. At lower levels, the snow showers continue in northern Scotland, and icy conditions further west as well, where we keep the showers going as temperatures drop down to -3 to -5, even in towns and cities. Perhaps not quite as cold overnight across the east, where there will be a bit more cloud around on Friday morning, but still potentially quite icy. The showers easing tomorrow across eastern areas, but we'll see more for Northern Ireland, northwest England, North Wales and southwest England. So again, it could be icy here. We have Met Office yellow warnings in place. For, again, the vast majority, it's dry, it's sunny, and it's cold with highs of just 2 or 3 degrees Celsius. And again, on Friday evening, the frost comes back and potentially things are very icy, with a few more wintry showers coming in to parts of the west, southwest Scotland, Northern Ireland, parts of North Wales and northwest England. We'll keep a few wintry showers going this weekend, so we'll keep the cold and frosty conditions, and increasingly we could start to see some dense freezing fog patches too.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates. Do you not believe in prison?
I don't believe in prisons.
I'm completely stunned. I guarantee you there'll be no spin, no bias, no censorship.
I actually was personally quite offended by it.
And no reason to go to bed.
So I guess they've always been quite woke.
That's Dan Wootton tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Every morning from 6 o'clock, we'll wake you up with GB News Breakfast with all the stories you didn't know from the night before.
So whether it's serious news, entertainment, or your own news from all over our great nation, we're here to kick off your day with a smile.
And the national media should be reflecting and reporting what's happening here.
You will notice the northwestern accents.
Whether you're with us on TV, radio, or online, every morning, it's breakfast from 6 a.m. Hope you can join us.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. for Gloria Meets. In exclusive interviews, I'll be finding out who our politicians really are and what they really think.
It's something that you would never want anyone to suffer.
I didn't know what channels there were. I didn't think I'd be believed.
I must have weighed about 7 stone and I'm 5'8". My instincts was to sort of cover this up. I mean, clearly that was a mistake.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello there, it's Eamon Holmes here from Breakfast on GB News. We're not just on your television and your screens, you know.
We're on DAB plus digital radio, so you can listen to your favourite shows on the move.
If you've not yet listened to GB News Radio, it's very simple. We're on your radio player and TuneIn apps, on your smart speaker, phone or tablet, or online at gbnews.uk.
Take us with you wherever you go. GB News Radio.
You never have to miss a moment of the People's Channel.
My name's Tom Harwood, and join me 9:30 a.m. every weekday for The Briefing, your one-stop shop for everything you need to know about what's going on in politics today.
I wonder if this is a deal that might need to be like the biscuits in this factory, twice baked.
Is there not an opportunity here to win out against the extremes?
Tom Harwood, GB News.
What are you going to do about it?
Things should have been done differently, and they certainly are being done differently.
Don't miss it. The Briefing with me, Tom Harwood, 9:30 Monday to Friday on GB News.
Hello, I'm Simon Evans. Join me on GB News for Headliners at 11 p.m, where I'll be joined by 2 of the country's top comedians as we take a look at tomorrow's newspapers tonight. If it's a big story, we'll be covering it, I guarantee, but we'll also have some fun along the way. That's GB News Headliners at 11 p.m. We won't put you to sleep, unlike some of the other paper review shows out there. So join us, 11 p.m, 7 nights a week.
Very good morning. It is 10:27. This is Bev Turner today on GB News, TV, radio and online. That means if you're watching us on the telly and you get in the car, you can put us on the radio. You need never not have GB News on. Right, let me introduce you to my guest this morning. I'm delighted to be joined by journalist and playwright Emma Burnell. Hello, Emma. And a Spectator and Telegraph columnist Sam Ashworth-Hayes. Right, guys, I'm sure you've been gripped since 8 o'clock this morning to the Harry and Meghan documentary. Why do I get the feeling that you haven't, Emma?
Well, I mean, I think we've discussed this before, Bev. I'm a Republican. I couldn't care about any of them, whether they're ex-royals, current royals, a lot. If I want to watch a soap opera, I'll watch Emmerdale. The Dingles are much better than the royals.
Well, OK, well, let me make this suggestion to you then. If you would like to see the demise of the royal family, perhaps you might be celebrating this today, because this is a stab in the side of the royal family, isn't it, from one of their own?
I mean, it's just dysfunctional family remains dysfunctional, more at 10. I don't think this is what's going to change Britain's mind. And I absolutely realise, before everyone screams at me, that I'm in a minority when I say that we shouldn't be a monarchy. I don't think this is what's going to change the minds of our country about how our constitutional arrangement should be. And that's what I care about.
OK, Sam, will this have any bearing on the course of history, this Netflix documentary series, making them something like 100 million quid?
I mean, it will certainly be of relevance to their descendants. I don't think it will be of much relevance to the UK. I mean, this is sort of an ongoing effort on their part to find ways to remain relevant and to sort of maintain these, as you say, these rather lucrative deals. But in terms of what it means for us in Britain, we get days of fevered media coverage, which would be frankly better off without, but otherwise, nothing.
You can't say that in this building today, Sam Ashworth-Hayes.
Sorry.
You really can't say that. You know what? Our viewers are genuinely interested in the royal family. We are GB News, and some would argue they are our greatest export, correct? So when we have an event like this, and we've got, you know, Prince Harry, he's the King's son, and what he's doing could have, depending on what he says in the next few episodes, it could have big implications. I mean, they don't have the power, though, do they, to turn the nation against the royal family?
No, I think they can do considerable PR damage, but mostly over a sort of shorter period. If you look at the longer term here, this is an institution which has survived for hundreds of years and will presumably continue to do so.
Do you think they should lose their titles? That's our Twitter poll today.
Oh, God. I'm going to pass.
Oh, come on, Sam. Emma?
I mean, none of them should have titles, so yeah.
Right, OK. Matt Hancock, talking of unpopular people.
And self-publicist.
And self-publicist, attention-seeking. If you put a Venn diagram of this, you know, there's quite a lot in common there, right? So Matt Hancock has announced, surprise, surprise, that he will not stand as an MP in the next election. Emma, shouldn't he go now?
I mean, this is like me saying I'm not going to be the face of the next Dior campaign. His party, his local party, had written to the Conservative whip. That's an extraordinary step. That doesn't happen. Saying they don't want him to have the whip back, they don't want him to be the candidate of the next election. He didn't quit. Yeah. He was pushed, and he's trying to put a brave face on it, a Matt Hancock type face on it.
Yeah, in his usual way, in which nothing is ever his fault.
No.
If you read some of the extracts from the diaries that were released yesterday.
Extraordinary. I mean, I'm not being funny, but if Matt Hancock's ego and Matt Hancock's ability were at the same level, we would have got through the pandemic a lot better.
Wouldn't we? Sam, what do you think? Should he step down now?
God, I mean, it really is Hancock's half hour again.
Yeah, Hancock's never-ending hour, infinite hour.
I think we'd be significantly better off without him palmed to this point, which is a shame because he's one of the few MPs who is actually sort of quite digitally literate, sort of, and is vaguely aware of how this sort of sector works.
Yeah, that's true.
But he's sort of made such a mess of things in terms of relationship with the party and in terms of his relationship with the public at this point that he's not really capable of being taken seriously as a policy voice, I think.
What do you think he'll do, though? Because his quote was, announcing his decision not to stand at the next election, Hancock said he had, and he said this on TikTok as well, remember, everybody, he had, quote, discovered a whole new world of possibilities which I am excited to explore.
I mean, he's going to keep trying to get his face on the telly. That's what he's going to do. That's his thing now.
But he's already done Celebrity SAS. He's already done The Jungle. All he's got left is Strictly and MasterChef. And that's, I'm sorry,
he's
Matt,
going
but
to
these
want
things
to have
do not
the kind of
necessarily
career
lead to something long term.
I mean, I think he's looking at people who have made a successful media profile, like, say, a Michael Portillo on the right or Jackie Smith on the left, who have gone forward, but they have
credibility
and warmth and intellect. Yeah, and Matt Hancock is. Wasn't a big fan of Michael Portillo, but the difference between them is shocking.
Oh, it's extreme.
I mean, even you say he's digital savvy, but before he went into the jungle, he was pushing Bitcoin and all of that kind of stuff. And we've just seen that massively crash. I mean, wish he'd been paid in Bitcoin. That would have been funny.
Well, that's true. Right, that's our first insert with my guest this morning, talking about the news. We've got more to come between now and midday. But after the break, we're going to go back to our reaction room. It's like Gogglebox. It's got Cameron Walker, some royal experts in there watching this Netflix documentary and letting you know what is in it. So you don't have to watch it. But that is all after your morning news.
Bev, thank you. Good morning. It's 10:33. I'm Bethany Elsey in the GB newsroom. The government has defended its decision to open the first UK coal mine in 30 years, saying they still intend to phase out coal. Levelling Up Secretary Michael Gove has given the green light for the new colliery in Whitehaven in Cumbria. Former COP26 President Alok Sharma has labelled the decision a backward step for UK climate action. But Cabinet Minister Gillian Keegan says it will create hundreds of jobs and insists the coal will not be used for power generation.
There's a lot of local support for this. There's a lot of jobs that it will bring, both direct and indirect. And it's very, very specific. It is not for energy. It is specifically coking coal to make steel. And by the way, to meet our net zero targets, we will need a lot of steel to make the wind turbines or the nuclear power station, etc. So the choice of, the source of supply of this coking coal is either that mine or importing it from somewhere else.
The first episode of the Duke and Duchess of Sussex new documentary series is out. The couple say they want to challenge misinformation around why they stood down as senior royals. Prince Harry said he was concerned for the safety of his family and felt it was his duty to uncover what he described as bribery within the UK media. The documentary features the couple's first-hand account, personal archive videos and interviews with friends, which were all filmed before the Queen's death. Unions are calling on the government to engage in meaningful talks amid a wave of public sector strikes. Border Force workers are the latest to announce industrial action from the 23rd of December to New Year's Eve. Rail workers, postal staff, nurses and paramedics are already planning to strike in the coming weeks. The Prime Minister has promised tough new laws to limit the disruption. And in the last few minutes, the latest NHS England statistics have been announced. The NHS waiting list in England has hit an all-time record high, with 7.2 million people waiting to start routine treatment at the end of October. In the same period, 68.9% of patients in England were seen within 4 hours of being admitted to A&E. Also, the worst performance on record. You're up to date on TV, online and DAB+ radio. This is GB News. Here's a quick snapshot of today's markets. The pound will buy you $1.2169 and €1.1594. The price of gold is £1,465.75 per ounce, and the FTSE 100 is at 7,487 points.
We are GB News, and we'd like to say thank you to each and every one of you for bringing us your conversations, for helping our great nation find its voice. We are here for you on radio, television, and online, across England, Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland.
It's not the BBC, you actually get your facts right.
We are proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
Monday to Thursday on GB News, it's Bev Turner Today from 10 a.m. We're going to be here for you, our GB News family, to keep you up to date, but also make you smile.
The guy went from puberty to adultery.
And I can't wait to bring a few of my own opinions. I have no time for cultural totalitarianism. We'll engage in passionate, but always polite debate, with your thoughts and opinions at the centre of it all. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akue, Saturday and Sunday afternoons on GB News. Expect fiery debate and passionate discussion as me and my panel tackle some of the biggest topics hitting the headlines. It's a place for everyone's opinion. No one gets cancelled, but no one gets an easy ride.
Oh, she's on it today!
Be ready for conversations that are fierce, frank, and of course, fun. Every Saturday and Sunday afternoon from 4 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch.
You've been cancelled. Join the club.
Oh my goodness, brilliant. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. Over a drink, we have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
We are GB News, the People's Channel.
And right across the United Kingdom.
You can find us on Sky Channel 512.
Virgin Media Channel 604.
Freesat Channel 216.
Freeview Channel 236. And YouView Channel 236.
You can also take us with you on DAB Plus Radio.
With the GB News app and at the website gbnews.uk.
We're absolutely everywhere.
Come join us on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Very good morning. This is Bev Turner today on GB News TV, radio and online. It's 10:39 a.m. We've got loads on the show today. I'm doing my two-chart challenge later and I'm asking whether electric cars are actually better for the planet. Don't go anywhere. That will be within the next hour or so. But let's cross now to our royal reporter, Cameron Walker, who is watching all of this Netflix documentary series for us this morning on Harry and Meghan. Cameron, how much have you seen and what do you make of it so far?
Good morning, Bev. Well, there's certainly a few revelations in this documentary series. We've heard from countless royal books, countless articles, exactly what went down when it was announced that Prince Harry was dating American actress Meghan Markle. But now, in this documentary, we're hearing it from Harry and Meghan themselves, and something they really emphasise is how their relationship changed following the fact that the media broke that they were in a relationship, and particularly talk about the intrusive behaviour, what they see as intrusive behaviour, of the press towards Meghan Markle. Now, the rules have changed really since Princess Diana died and she was hounded by paparazzi photographers in the final few years of her life. But Rafe, what do you make of Meghan's claims that she was hounded by photographers, the press, the fact that one of her neighbours in Toronto had installed was paid to install a CCTV camera to overlook her garden? What do you make of that level of press intrusion which she alleges?
Yes, well, I mean, your heart goes out to any woman who's going to basically be entering into that sort of a maelstrom. I think the criticism here actually could be placed with Prince Harry, because he knew full well what his mother went through. We remember very well when news first broke of Lady Diana Spencer being involved with Prince Charles, the media frenzy that surrounded her, and she looked very shocked and intimidated going to her car. You know, when Prince William first met Kate Middleton, of course, she had a very long time behind the scenes where she actually got to prepare for the role. And you would have thought Prince Harry actually might have briefed Meghan a bit more about that. And in fact, that comes across very much in this documentary, is how unaware she was of the British tabloid media. I mean, I don't know how anybody could be unaware of how intrusive the British tabloid media are, especially somebody who is media savvy as well. So one must also bear that in mind.
Yeah, something which Meghan refers to quite a lot, actually, particularly in the second episode, is that she was constantly told by palace officials or Prince Harry that, don't worry, it will get better. It will get better once you're married. The media intrusion will stop. You'll be less criticised. I mean, from seeing it so far, it sounds like, from Meghan's perspective at least, nothing changed.
Well, from Meghan's truth. And let us say, if you watch this documentary on Netflix, you really will see, I think, one side of the story. There was overwhelming support for Meghan. There was such positive reception by the press, and it's almost as if she's ignoring the 99% of positivity that there was there, particularly in the print media, compared to a few stories online that were reported.
I think something which many people perhaps will find pretty lovely is the amount of new footage or photographs we see of Prince Harry and Meghan's young son, Archie, in California. And they speak about being parents, and Prince Harry says, what's most, and I quote, what's most important to us is we don't repeat the same mistakes our parents made, referring to the then Prince Charles and Princess Diana's divorce.
Yes, and also the Markles too, as well, of course. And of course, he's absolutely right. You know, every parent wants to make sure that they don't make the same mistakes that their own parents made. However, I would say, you know, in the trailer and also in this documentary, he says that he wants to protect his family, and he references Diana's role also in doing that. Diana shielded her children. It's quite an odd way to protect your family, by putting your children front and centre in a 6-part Netflix documentary. We were told that they were escaping to America to have some privacy, but everything that they've done in the intervening years seems to run rather counter to that message.
One of the themes that has run through here so far is this idea of race, and for the first time we have seen the Duchess of Sussex's mother, Doria, speak on camera about her experience, and particularly the media headlines which Prince Harry perceives as racist. In fact, he says that the palace machine, as it were, or at least he alleges that the palace machine says that the experience that Meghan is going through was experienced by Kate, was experienced by Camilla, was experienced by Princess Diana. So Meghan should essentially just suck it up and get on with this, and it will all calm down eventually. Prince Harry didn't see it that way, though, did he?
No, Prince Harry hasn't seen it, but we know very well that Prince Harry and Meghan both are very keen on scouring the internet for stories about themselves. But if you actually look at the media at the time, it was 95% positive, and you just had to look at the crowds that lined the Long Walk, for example, at Windsor Castle following the marriage. There was no talk people wanting to support this woman, and I think she went through exactly what Kate went through, exactly what all members of the royal family have to experience when they fall in love and get married. And I think we're having a rather Meghan-esque narrative being put upon us here, and including the fact that they've chosen people like Afua Hirsch to be one of the expert commentators, somebody who wants Nelson's column in Trafalgar Square to be removed because of his white supremacy, allegedly. David Olusogo is also the other commentator here on race matters, somebody who believes that the country is systemically racist. So I think we need to take a pinch of salt when we listen to a lot of this.
Of course, they're not here to defend themselves, and there are two sides to every story. But Bev, in the next hour, we're going to be talking to another royal commentator, Dickie Arbiter, who was the former press secretary to the late Queen Elizabeth II. So make sure you stay tuned for that.
Thank you, Cameron. Cameron Walker there with Rafe Haydel-Mancu watching Netflix series, so you don't have to. You've been getting in touch with me. Dawn has said they should be stripped of all royal privileges. This is, of course, the Duke and Duchess of Sussex titles. Philip has said they should be given their wish. They should be stripped of their titles, relegated to ordinary mortals, which is what they seem to want to be. They should lose their titles. They're clearly trying to destroy the royal family and monetise their titles, says Andrea. Lots of you feeling like that. Let me know what you think. And we got a Twitter poll running on that as well on @GBNews this morning as to whether you think they should lose their titles. OK, now North Yorkshire has become England's first area to adopt a mandatory 100% council tax premium for second homes. This is to tackle the housing crisis in the region. Our Yorkshire reporter Annie Riley has the story.
Second homeowners in North Yorkshire are set to have their council tax doubled under the government's Levelling Up bill in a bid to make more homes available for local people priced out of the market. Coastal towns and villages like Staithes have a larger proportion of second homes or holiday lets than permanent residents, and people here have mixed opinions on the new scheme.
Potentially, it'll actually push more people towards having holiday lets than second homes. Second homes bring something to the village, but they're not used enough, in my opinion. They need to be used a lot more. Obviously, I've run a holiday lane, but saying that, part of the experience of coming to Staithes for holidaymakers is the fact that there's people to talk to that live here, and that it is a real live village. People who are wanting to get money into property as second homeowners. If it means they get taxed, then they get taxed. They can probably afford to pay it anyway without worrying. Most of them, I suspect, will look for loopholes around it anyway, so I don't see as it's going to make a massive difference to anything.
I think the Airbnbs are more of a problem than the second homes in a way. So I feel that because they don't have to pay any tax, then in a way I think they're the people who should be targeting, because in a way they're the people who are sort of taking the soul from the community. It's purely business. Some of the people who've bought the cottages here may well not even have visited the village before they bought it. They just saw it as an opportunity.
Councillors hope the move will encourage people to sell or rent out their second homes. And for those that pay the tax, it's expected to bring in $14 million each year, which would be spent on housing.
If you go to some Dales communities, some of the villages in the Dales, you'll actually find that over half the properties are owned by people who don't live there 52 weeks of the year. So that is quite a significant state of affairs, which has led us to say it's no longer just a problem, it is now a crisis. And that's why we have to take drastic steps. And we appreciate it's a drastic step to double somebody's council tax.
The next steps are now going to be for the government to legislate on the second home 100% council tax rise, and it's due to come in place in April 2024. Anna Riley, GB News, Staithes.
Thank you, Anna. Right, I'm back at the desk with my news hounds to talk about the big stories of the day. Emma Burnell is here, journalist and playwright, and also Sam Ashworth-Hayes, journalist at The Telegraph and The Spectator. Right, Sam, strikes, everyday strikes. These strikers should just be made to go to work, shouldn't they? Forced out there in the cold for a pittance.
I mean, it is the world's worst advent calendar. When you look at the December list of strikes, every day you open a new box and you get something else. Today it's the ambulance drivers off, tomorrow it's the buses, whatever it is. It's absolutely ridiculous. And there's a clear attempt being used to make use of the pressure on the healthcare system and the transport system over the winter to extract concessions from, well, in some cases, private entities which are regulated by the government, and in other cases from the government directly.
Yeah.
And Sunak, I think, is onto the right sort of path, turning around and saying, actually, these legal protections you have for striking, you must now maintain minimum service levels if you wish these to apply.
So what we have at the moment, you're not legally allowed to strike, I think, if you're a prison officer or a police officer. And so he wants to impose those same restrictions, I believe, onto paramedics.
Possibly. And the other one, of course, is for train drivers as well, where they're saying minimum service levels must be maintained. So basically, where you have these critical infrastructure for the functioning of the country, we're saying that actually you can't use your position to basically threaten to shut these things down, which I think is perfectly reasonable.
How would that go down with Labour, Emma? Because, of course, the Labour are very much in cahoots with the unions. The unions pay Labour a huge amount of money.
Yeah, the unions are members of the Labour Party. They're affiliated, or some of them are. It's worth pointing out some of them are not. I mean, I think the thing about these strikes that we should remember, and very often doesn't get discussed because quite obviously when we're on the media, we're talking about the story of the day.
Yeah.
But this is actually a story of a decade. And the reason that people have got to this point where they have been pushed, so the nurses striking for the first time in 104 years, I think, is that things have got to breaking point for the people that they represent. And they are doing their job in saying we cannot take any more. The NHS is in crisis, and we feel that as people who may want to use it or have loved ones who use it. But imagine that being your day-to-day reality of your job, going in every day and knowing not only that you are not able to do your job as well as you would like, but also that you're being incredibly poorly paid for it. The nurses, for example, are asking for a 19% pay rise. That sounds enormous, doesn't it? 19%.
It is quite enormous.
But actually, that only takes them back in terms of cost of living to what they were being paid 12 years ago. That doesn't sound quite so enormous when you see it that way. They're going back to the standard of living that they've lost over the last 12 years.
Sam, when you think about Margaret Thatcher was kind of the last Prime Minister to face this amount of industrial action, and she just refused to engage, didn't she? She said, I will not refuse. I mean, and she did kind of sort it out. She went much harder than Sunak is doing.
Yeah, and I mean, Sunak he's displayed some qualities and be able to bring the Conservative Party sort of together, although he's already had some pretty big backbench balance to deal with. And if that's his level of success engaging with his own party, then quite how he hopes to face down the union pressure is a different matter entirely. But, I would say that, there are people you can take some inspiration from, and quite bizarrely, one of those right now is Joe Biden, who's turned around and basically said, no, that if you work on the railways in the US, if you're doing freight railway, you can't go on strike.
Is that right? Yeah. I don't think I realised that.
Well, it's very recently his change, and he's getting obviously hammered for it.
Yeah.
Possibly I've completely misrepresented this, but I'm fairly confident.
OK. Out of all of the industries, Emma, that are striking, we've got ambulances, we've got the latest strikes to be announced, our border force staff at several airports. They're walking out over Christmas. We've got this. We've got the Royal Mail. We've got the university workers. Do you have more sympathy with any particular group? Or do you think they've all got a point to make?
No,
and
I
they
think
have to unite?
this is the problem, is that we are coming to a point in so many different places at once. And you talked about Margaret Thatcher, but Margaret Thatcher had one big strike, really, the coal strike. Whereas this is, lots and lots of places have been pushed to their breaking limits and underfunded and run down and mistreated for far too long. So it's not about whether I think a nurse is more worthy than a train driver. I would say, if we're going to have laws that say trains should have minimum service, I think the first people to talk to are the train operating companies.
Yeah, 100%.
Frankly. But I think this is about working conditions in this country, what it's like to be a worker in this country, and the fact that it is getting harder and harder for so many people. And I would massively have preferred that we hadn't been pushed to this point, that we hadn't seen everything run down so much. But I do completely understand everybody's sense at the sharp end of what it feels like. That is where we're at.
Well, talking of Margaret Thatcher and coal mines, feeling like we've arrived here to the station in a time machine this morning, we've got a new coal mine, the first one to be approved in 30 years, Sam. What a fantastic story. Jobs in the area, regeneration, great news story.
Yeah, I mean, look, Britain has found it exceptionally hard to open anything recently. You see these stories about spending hundreds of millions on planning applications to open a 24-kilometre stretch of road. So the fact they've actually managed to get a coal mine through is frankly remarkable, and credit to the government on that.
Yeah, Emma, as an eco-zealot,
I am absolutely an eco-zealot.
With despair.
Well, let's take the eco point for a moment. We have lost one of the few areas in which the UK had maintained a really strong international standing was our leadership on climate. Smash that to bits. Great, well done. Secondly, here's the thing. One of the problems that the left had when there was the coal strikes in the 80s was that there was nothing done to help those communities change into and transition away from that coal.
Yeah.
Opening up a coal mine now in a declining industry is such a short-term measure, and we would be so much better off if we were investing in something that had legs, something that had a future. This seems to me like the kind of symbolic gesture that feels good for a moment on Twitter and then actually is not giving the people in West Cumbria the kind of long-term future economic growth that they need. So it just feels, both in terms of the climate but also in terms of our economy, to be very short-term and really just muddle-headed.
What do you think, Sam?
I think that's a slightly pessimistic view. I don't think we've conceded a great deal of climate leadership through this. If you look at this, it's basically the equivalent of if you operated for 50 years and over the whole term of its lifespan and you dig out all the coal, you're talking about roughly a year's worth of emissions. And Britain has done a remarkably good job in sort of decarbonising much of its energy supply, in reducing emissions generally, and of course in changing its transport sector. And I don't think we're conceding anything really on that. The fact that we're going to
1 year ago, Alok Sharma at COP22, which we hosted, was celebrating the death of coal on behalf of this government, one of the governments that we've had over the last year. But, and that's what we were able to stand up and symbolically say, and we just can't do that anymore.
Do we have to, though?
Well, yes, because coal is A, finite, and B, an incredibly dirty industry. Nobody was saying that coal mining was actually good for the individual workers. It's a very difficult, dangerous industry. We would be much better if we could stand up and say we have become the world leaders in green technologies. We are massively piling investment into small factories in West Cumbria who are going to create all the elements that we need for wind turbines, for wave technology, all of these things that have an absolute infinite lifespan.
But I'm really torn on this because I can see that point of view, but then I also think that what this is doing, they've obviously thought about it, apparently is the greenest way possible to extract coal, which I realise sounds like an oxymoron to you, Emma.
I mean, that's like, again, I just come back to the, that's like me saying it's the lowest calorie way of me eating a hamburger.
But apparently it's going to be carbon offset, they're going to be planting trees, and all those people in Cumbria will have jobs. If you are in Cumbria, do let me know what you think about this proposed mine. GBviews at gbnews.uk. We've come to the end of the first hour. That went quickly. We're going to be right back with more, lots more, after this short break.
Here on GB News Live, we'll be keeping you in the picture, finding out what's happening across the country and finding out why it matters to you. We'll have the facts fast with our team of reporters and specialist correspondents. Wherever it's happening, we'll be there from 12 noon on TV, radio and online. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Monday to Thursday nights on GB News. At 6, it's Dubes & Co. 7 o'clock, Farage. At 8, join Mark Stein. And at 9, Dan Wootton Tonight, followed by Headliners. On TV, radio and online. This is GB News.
Here on GB News Live, we'll be keeping you in the picture, finding out what's happening across the country and finding out why it matters to you. We'll have the facts fast with our team of reporters and specialist correspondents. Wherever it's happening, we'll be there from 12 noon on TV, radio and online. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello, I'm Michelle Dewberry and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Dubes & Kerr. Me and my panel will get stuck right into the day's events, and I can tell you, in fact, I can warn you, expect some robust debates, some strong opinions and perspectives from both sides of the fence. It's about you at home as well. I love to read out all of your comments, or at least as many as I can. So join me, Michelle Dewberry, Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on Dubes & Kerr.
We are GB News, the People's Channel.
Why not take us home with you by visiting the GB News shop at gbnews.store. You'll find all the official merchandise, a really good present actually for yourself, your friends or your family.
We ship across the UK mainland at no extra cost. GB News, the People's Channel.
I'm Mark White. As GB News Home and Security Editor, I cover those key issues that are so important to you. Our authorities, our communities doing all they can to combat violent crime. With the public services under unbearable strain, why are we still failing to control our borders? Defence, the first priority of any government, has been continually hollowed out. Can we trust our politicians to protect the armed forces? Join me, Mark White, on GB News.
We are GB News, right across the nation. You can get us on television, on radio, on digital. We're absolutely everywhere. Amazing! You see, amazing! You remind me of me in the European Parliament. But here's the most important bit. We are not part of the mainstream establishment. We think and speak just like you do. We are the People's Channel. Magnificent. That's really, really thoughtful. Come and join us on GB News, the People's News Channel.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of two wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
Very good morning. Welcome to Bev Turner today on GB News. We've got sharp-eyed TV critics and royal experts watching the Meghan and Harry documentary series as we speak, so you don't have to. Stay tuned here to see what they make of it. Also this morning, I'm going to be joined in the studio by the Ukrainian MP, Critic, to discuss the aid that the UK gives to her country and find out where it's all going. That is all coming up. To look at the latest news.
Good morning. It's coming up to 3 minutes past 11. I'm Rhiannon Jones in the GB newsroom. The government's defended its decision to open the first UK coal mine in 30 years, saying it's still their intent to phase out coal. Levelling Up Secretary Michael Gove has given planning permission for the new colliery in Whitehaven in Cumbria. Former COP26 President Alex Sharma has labelled the decision a backward step for UK climate action. But Gillian Keegan says it will create hundreds of jobs and insists the coal will be used for the production of steel and not for power generation.
There's a lot of local support for this. There's a lot of jobs that it will bring, both direct and indirect. And it's very, very specific. It is not for energy. It is specifically coking coal to make steel. And by the way, to meet our net zero targets, we will need a lot of steel to make the wind turbines or the nuclear power station, etc. So the choice of, the source of supply of this coking coal is either that mine or importing it from somewhere else.
Shadow Climate Secretary Ed Miliband, meanwhile, says it's a terrible decision.
Opening a new coal mine marks the death knell for any claims this government has to climate leadership, and it won't provide the sustainable jobs we need. We should be going full pelt for the clean, green jobs of the future. But Rishi Sunak is so weak, being pushed around by his backbenchers, that he just can't deliver.
Now, in the first episode of the Duke and Duchess of Sussex's new docu-series, the couple say they want to challenge misinformation around why they stood down as senior royals. Prince Harry said he was concerned for the safety of his family and felt it was his duty to uncover what he described as bribery with the UK media. The documentary features the couple's first-hand account, personal archive videos and interviews with friends, all filmed before the Queen's death. Members of the royal family have declined to comment on the series. Well, in episode 1, the couple talk about their first date.
I was panicking, I was freaking out, I started sweating.
Again, I didn't know him, so I was like, oh, is this what he does? Got it. Like, this I'm not doing. I'm not gonna sit.
What was that supposed to mean?
Like one of the guys who's so much of an ego that that any girl would sit around and wait for a half hour for you. And I was just not interested in that.
And then when I walked in,
He was
hot,
just so
sweaty,
sweet.
red ball of mash. She's like, oh, that's not what you want.
That's not what you are. You genuinely
sorry.
were like so embarrassed and late.
And we'll have much more on that throughout the day here on GB News. Now, the latest NHS England statistics have been announced. The NHS waiting list in England has hit an all-time record high, with 7.2 million people waiting to start routine treatment at the end of October. In the same period, 68.9% of patients in England were seen within 4 hours of being admitted to A&E departments, also the worst performance on record. The Home Secretary says the military are set to replace striking border force workers. As she says, protecting the UK's borders is the #1 priority. People wanting to travel over the Christmas period are being warned to expect cancellations and delays over the 8 days of action from the 23rd of December to New Year's Eve. Rail workers, postal staff, nurses and paramedics are already planning to strike in the coming weeks. Suella Braverman says the contingency plans will aim to minimise disruption.
Well, we have been preparing for the prospects of border force strikes for some time now. We've been analysing what the impact of a shortfall of operational personnel on our border will be. We've got plans in place that will involve, to a degree, bringing in some of our military colleagues to help us in a variety of roles. And we want to, ultimately, I'm not willing to compromise on security at the border. That's the #1 priority.
Motorists are being warned of dangerous driving conditions as a cold snap hits the UK. Icy conditions may result in some slips and falls, and there may be icy patches on untreated roads, pavements and cycle paths. The RAC is urging drivers to check their tyres and to carry a blanket in their cars just in case they break down. The first coins with the official effigy of King Charles III will appear in circulation in post offices from today. The King's portrait will first feature on a 50p coin with the tail side commemorating the life and legacy of his mother, Queen Elizabeth. And the last surviving dambuster has died at the age of 101. George Leonard Johnny Johnson was the last surviving original member of RAF 617 Squadron's famous dambusters raid of 1943. He died peacefully at his care home in Westbury in Trim, Bristol on Wednesday night, surrounded by his family, a source has told PA News Agency. This is GB News. We'll bring more as it happens. Now, though, it's back to Bev.
Very good morning. Welcome to Bev Turner today here on GB News, TV, radio and online. There has been so much build-up to this next Netflix docuseries from Harry and Meghan, and today is the day, if you're into that kind of thing, you can watch it. Well, the trailers promise the inside story of how the Sussexes stepped away from their royal duties, with Harry referring to a dirty game. Now, our royal reporter Cameron Walker will be live in the GB News reaction room, a sort of regal box, like Gogglebox, with all the latest you need to know from the bombshell new series in just a moment. And also this morning it is back, my two-chart challenge, where we back up debate with facts. I've got a great one today. I'm asking, are electric cars actually better for the environment? That's coming up a little bit later with two superb experts on that topic. I'm going to be back at the desk with my fantastic panel with a look at the day's biggest stories. And of course, keep your views coming to me on Twitter. We've got a poll asking you, on the back of this docu-series on Netflix, should Harry and Meghan, the Duke and Duchess of Sussex, be stripped of their royal titles? Well, a whopping 91% of you think that they should. You obviously think this is an act of duplicitousness, treasonous act towards the royal family. Cast your vote now. Also, email me, gbviews@gbnews.uk, with anything else you want to tell me. Right, this morning, as I've just said, Netflix have released this series that everybody is talking about. We have got our reaction room. We've got Cameron Walker there. And Cameron, who have you got with you this morning? I know you've got a bit of a revolving door of popcorn eaters there with you to watch the series. Let us know what you think. If you are there, Cameron, who has joined you now?
Certainly do, Bev. Yes, I've got three royal commentators actually in the room with me. I've got Rafe Hadel-Mangu, who joins me, and I'll be speaking to him in a little second. I've got Michael Cole as well, and Dickie Arbiter, who we'll be speaking to a little bit later on. Now, I just want to pick up on something actually, Bev, which our colleague at GB News, Dan Wootton, has actually tweeted. I'm just going to read it out. He says, speaking about Harry and Meghan, for a couple who claim they care about their privacy, in less than half an hour, Harry and Meghan have already shared with the world private text messages, private photos and private video diaries and private clips of their son. Rafe, for a couple who claims when they left the royal family, one of the reasons for doing that was to get more privacy, it doesn't seem very private on the surface, does it?
Doesn't quite balance out, does it? No. First of all, they left in 2020 to go to deepest, darkest Canada for their privacy. Then they found that was a bit too private, so then they went to California, which was a bit less private. And now, of course, ever since they wanted this privacy, we've seen book deals, we've seen Spotify deals, we've seen this Netflix deal, we've seen an Oprah Winfrey interview, we've seen James Corden interview. It's rather an odd timeline for some people who are looking to get away from the limelight.
In the final episode, they're talking actually about the Brexit debate here in Great Britain and the fact that at the time of the engagement announcement of Harry, that he was going to be marrying Meghan Markle, the American actress, the fallout from the Brexit referendum was very much raging on in this country. And they're talking in this documentary about the rise in anti-immigration and the rise in hate speech, the rise in racism, essentially painting a picture that Britain was a racist country, or is a racist country. What do you make of that?
I think this is quite a scurrilous attack upon Britain, upon Brexit voters, upon many of the viewers of GB News, for sure. To try to equate in some way Brexit with Meghan is ludicrous to the nth degree. I mean, this really, you know, if you repeat a lie long enough, people will tend to begin to believe that it's true. And I'm sure that's the idea behind it, to portray Britain as a racist country when we know full well Britain is one of the least racist countries. This is an attempt to try and import America's cultural wars to Britain. America does have great racial divides, but the racism you find in America has no place in this country. We've seen full well from all of the reception that Meghan got when she was first over here, outpourings of affection from the public. We saw huge crowds lining the long walk. I mean, this is really, you know, if there's going to be one award that this wins, it should be the best award for fantasy.
Ray, for the moment, thank you. We're going to be talking to lots of different experts here in the Royal Reaction Room, GB News' Royal Reaction. Bev, get your popcorn out and stay tuned.
How interesting, isn't it, the idea that that the culture wars from America were being brought over here, or they're still trying to bring them over here. Joining me now is royal commentator Richard Fitzwilliams. Richard, very good morning to you. I realise you've also been hopefully sat there this morning with your cup of coffee, watching the TV from 8 a.m, which you probably don't do on a Thursday morning ordinarily. What do you make of the content that you've seen so far?
Well, I think firstly, one has to make the point that this is about, as I see it, two things. One is money. The Sussexes have a contract with Netflix that's worth, it's been estimated, reported $100 million or so, and they had, therefore, to make something that was supposed, they thought, to appeal most emphatically to an American audience. This is a very, very sort of the way the music tunes in, the way they pretend, or they are, depending on your point of view. I have to say, believe a great deal of what they say when they're being controversial, because there were so many faux pas, in my opinion, in their interview on Oprah, which did such damage to the monarchy. But there's no doubt that they have in this, that you see their backgrounds in both cases, the way it builds up to their careers, just relatively briefly, and then of course there's the romance, and then there are a series of comments illustrated by, including links to the slave trade, unconscious bias of race and so forth, to the monarchy. I mean, essentially, although there are jibes could be linked to them, they don't criticize individual members of the royal family and yet. But there is no question that this is probably coming, I suspect, in the third, the fourth, fifth, sixth episodes. What we see is their fear they've been destroyed by the press, by what they see as a poisonous society in Britain, and there's no doubt that is linked to race and unconscious bias in the royal family. I mean, watching it, I have to say I'm going to reserve judgment as to how damaging it's going to be until I've seen the whole thing. For those who are royal watchers, there's interesting footage, but my goodness, the point was made by Cameron, absolutely. When it comes to privacy and you share intimate texts, intimate videos, it couldn't be more intimate. Privacy is gone when you've got money, and also there's the revenge factor. That's left to the second part next Thursday, where explosive revelations are promised, I think.
What they're trying to do, Richard, with this documentary series, I imagine, that's the most basic question. What do Meghan and Harry wish to achieve? And what they wish to achieve is to turn around the opinions of the globe, of the world, not just Great Britain, but they want the onlooking public to see that they have been hard done by, that they have been victimised, and that they are these wonderful people and they can go on and cash in on their newfound popularity. It's naive beyond belief, isn't it? Do they have nobody in their life that advises them this is not going to work?
I wish I agreed, but I do have to caution here. If this is firstly, I don't think they care about public opinion in Britain. Most people really do not regard them highly. They are, of course, the hatred of the press. It's almost tangible. It comes across here. But with reference to your wider point, here I fear that gearing this to an American audience and also looking at the wider world, they've got a very, very substantial brand. Over 49 million people watched Oprah, and it did a lot of damage, especially among young people. In fact, if you look here, apart from Scotland, if you look at the polls regarding young people, persons of colour, and the monarchy, they are far, far lower than the general support, which is 60+%. The facts, however, are with this. There was a jibe or appeared to be a debate when it came to formal dressing. If you believe that Meghan didn't know the national anthem of Britain and had to go on Google, well, then you believe that. But the point is, it's not what we think. The problem with is they are controlling the narrative. That is what they want as victims. And that's where you get the next 3 hours, which will explain in more detail. And of course, the royal rota, the press, that is rubbish. And if you believe that, if you feed into this, you'll believe it.
Well, Richard, it remains to be seen whether they can convince the public of their virtuous, humble, private nature. But I really appreciate your input this morning. Thank you so much, Richard Fitzwilliams there. Now, different topic entirely. Time magazine, I don't know whether you saw this, has named Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky as its person of 2022. The award goes to something or someone deemed to have had the most influence on global events over the past 12 months. And I'm delighted to be joined in the studio now by Kira Rudik, member of the Ukrainian Parliament, to talk about the challenges which your country faces. Kira, good morning. Lovely to see you. When did you arrive in London?
Hello, Beverly. Thank you so much for having me. I arrived late night yesterday, and I'm here for a very important project of mine, is seizing Russian assets and using them for the sake of Ukraine. Tomorrow we will have a huge conference on that, because I see how much our allies struggle with keeping with the support for Ukraine and having to face the economical burdens and inflation and different issues. And we need to make sure that we get the fair and logical thing done. Use Russian money to cover for Ukraine's expense rather than using people's money.
Yeah. Do you feel you have the support of the British government and Rishi Sunak to do that?
Yes, we think that it is very much possible to do, and it will be done. Like 3 months ago, when we started talking and promoting this idea, people said that we are crazy, that it's not going to be done. Then at some point, people were thinking, okay, maybe it is possible, because Canada have already passed the legislation. And tomorrow, we will be gathering with different MPs from different parties and discussing actually the mechanism, which is a fantastic breakthrough. And European Union is already talking about that as well. I think next year we will see the legislation going through the European Parliament, and the national parliaments of different countries are also considering doing that. People need money to keep support Ukraine, and this is where we are going to take them.
That sounds like a legal minefield, Kira. How do you legally seize Russian assets in the UK to pay for the war?
So there are a couple of mechanisms that right now are being investigated, and one of them is to loan from that money. So right now there is about $300 billion that are stored here in the United Kingdom of Russian central bank assets. They are frozen, so they are not good for anything. But what can we do is to loan from this money and use it for the sake of Ukraine with additional information that once the war is over and there would be reparations, there would be some agreement, then money will be returned or reused. So this is one of the ideas that will pass, I think, through the Lithuanian and Latvian parliaments soon because they found that it is a legal way to do.
What is the situation in Ukraine at the moment in terms of what you need the money for?
The main thing is right now is generators. I can tell you it's cold in the apartments in Ukraine, and the winter is just coming, and we are calculating not only which day of war it is, but also which day of winter it is right now. So the first and the most immediate thing for us is to go through this winter with the minimum losses. So everybody will go through. But you can imagine that when you are like a normal and healthy adult, you can say, okay, that will be a challenge for me, not a tragedy. But if you have little children, if you are an elderly person, it will be extremely hard and extremely dangerous to go without the heat, to go without electricity. So this is where we need the help ASAP.
What would you say, Kira, to British people watching this who would say, we have already given £2.3 billion in military aid to Ukraine. Our economy is struggling here. We have nurses striking, paramedics striking because we can't afford to pay them. And people would be asking serious questions now about whether there is an end to this conflict and how much more we can give.
I would say I understand it and I feel it, and I knew that this day will come when people will start saying, it's very hard for us. We feel for you, we support you, but it's hard on us. And this is why I'm saying, let's not use your money, taxpayers' money. Let's use Russian money for that. They have a lot. It's $300 billion. It would be enough to cover for the Ukrainian-related programs for a while. Not even for the military, but for humanitarian support, for the generators, for support of Ukrainian refugees here in the UK, for additional programs that are coming. There is a way. It's a proper way, a logical way, and the fair way.
OK, well, we wish you luck with that. I would have thought that our viewers would be very much on side with the concept of using Russian money rather than British money. But we wish you luck, and we really appreciate you coming in to see GB News this morning. MP Kira Ruddock there from Ukraine. Now, I'm going to be back with my guests in just a moment to go through some of the biggest stories of the day, but it's time for a quick break. Don't go anywhere.
I'm Mark Dolan. Join me at 11 on GB News for Headliners, in which I'll be joined by two of the UK's top comedians discussing tomorrow's papers. If it's an important story, we'll cover it, but we'll have some fun along the way. Headliners, the late-night paper review that won't send you to sleep like the others will. 7 nights a week at 11 p.m. on GB News.
Monday to Thursday nights on GB News. At 6, it's Dubes & Co. 7 o'clock, Farage. At 8, join Mark Stein. And at 9, Dan Wootton Tonight, followed by Headliners. On TV, radio and online. This is GB News.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates.
Do you not believe in prison?
I don't believe in prison.
I'm completely stunned.
I guarantee you there'll be no spin, no bias, no censorship.
I actually was personally quite offended by it.
And no reason to go to bed.
So I guess they've always been quite woke.
That's Dan Wootton Tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Lawrence Fox, on GB News. Frank, fun, fearless, and sometimes serious. Much as I love a Friday night punch-up, what I really want is a battle of ideas. I want to look at things differently. I want to hear different voices and engage with your unique experiences. Every Friday at 7 p.m. on GB News.
Hello, I'm Esther McVeigh.
And I'm Philip Davis.
Whether you're watching or listening on TV, online or on radio, we handpick the latest stories, debates and expert opinions for your weekend. So whether that's politics, news or showbiz, we've got it covered.
Join us every Saturday morning at 10 o'clock on GB News.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. for Gloria Meets. In exclusive interviews, I'll be finding out who our politicians really are and what they really think.
It's something that you would never want anyone to suffer.
I didn't know what channels there were. I didn't think I'd be believed.
I must have weighed about 7 stone and I'm 5'8".
My instincts was to sort of cover this up. I mean, clearly that was a mistake.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello there, it's Eamon Holmes here from Breakfast on GB News. We're not just on your television and your screens, you know.
We're on DAB plus digital radio, so you can listen to your favourite shows on the move.
If you've not yet listened to GB News Radio, it's very simple. We're on your radio player and tune-in apps, on your smart speaker, phone or tablet, or online at gbnews.uk.
Take us with you wherever you go. GB News Radio.
You never have to miss a moment of the People's Channel.
Very good morning. It's 11:26. This is Bev Turner today on GB News. I was asking you to tell me if you lived in the area in Cumbria where they're getting the coal mine, and you didn't disappoint. Jamie says, I am in Whitehaven, and I and nearly everyone in the town, excellent grammar, which I read very badly, really wants this mine. We've been waiting years for this decision. It will bring 500 direct jobs and 1,500 indirect. It will bring huge investment to the area. And Vivian says, we need to make steel, therefore we need coke. These eco-zealots, that's you, Emma Burnell, don't mind young children digging out the mines in other countries where safety and working standards are well below our standards, in some case non-existent, cheap slave labour. What a hypocrite. I don't think she meant that directly at you.
I'll take it. I'm aware that I am Marmite.
You're one of the very few lefties that will come on this channel, so we love having you, Emma. Sam Ashworth-Hayes is also here with me. We like you having you as well, Sam, don't worry. Right, what are we talking about, guys? We are discussing the fact that the 1,000 coldest neighbourhoods in the country have been identified by the Daily Mirror, and they have terrible insulation. Sam, it seems like a quick fix, doesn't it, insulate our homes?
Yeah, it's sort of another legacy of the fact that Britain has quite an old housing stock, much of which is not really built up to modern standards, and much of which is also quite hard to retrofit with this stuff. You can't sort of put in cavity wall insulation if you don't have cavity walls. And we're sort of reaping the benefits of having spent a lot of time not really investing in this, now that we have a sort of combined energy crisis and real cold snap on the way.
Yeah,
so,
and we now had the announcement today that we're not going to reach our housing building targets. As a young person, does your heart sink when you hear stories?
Increasingly not a young person, but yeah, no, it's extremely depressing because, you know, as many clever arguments as people want to make about interest rates as the cause here, the fundamental issue is that we have incredibly constrained housing supply, which drives up housing prices, which is great for the Conservative voting sort of bloc, which is generally homeowners, generally older, who are not that concerned about renting. And it's terrible for people like me and my friends who would quite like to own a home at some point and are sort of in this incredibly brutal housing market.
Yeah, it's awful, isn't it, Emma? This does seem like an easy fix. We've neglected the insulation of our houses for decades.
Absolutely, we have. And what I would love to see, and I don't care which government does it, and I will cheer any government that does do it, is something along the lines of the dash to gas that we had in the 70s, where they just went street to street to street and changed everybody's supplies over. And if we did something like that with insulation, it would generate huge jobs, you know, massive investment in workers in the UK, but also it would change overnight a lot of the problems that we have with energy bills, with energy demand, and people just freezing in their homes. And, you know, that's a terrible, terrible thing in modern Britain.
It should also be that every new house that is built, every single new house that is built should be built to the highest ecologically sound standards. So my other half, I have got a dog in this fight, actually, I don't mind admitting this. So my other half, his company build houses like that. And they are brand new houses, and you can heat them with a hairdryer. You can so at the moment, the residents of these houses have practically zero utility bills, zero gas and electric, because they're so brilliantly insulated. I didn't really understand it until I started going out with someone who built the houses. So, you know. Right, moving on. Let us talk about the state of our nation and the terrible rise in diabetes, Emma.
Yeah, it's coupled with the ongoing obesity crisis. We are record-breaking in bad ways again. We have the world's highest levels of early onset type 2 diabetes.
And that's the one that's brought on by obesity?
Largely by obesity. I mean, there are other factors.
Yeah.
It's really complex because we do need to tackle the obesity crisis. I am aware that I am overweight. I will tell you, and I've told you before, I'm sure, that I've actually lost half of my body weight. I'm on the way to being not overweight.
That's not easy.
But the ways that we generally try to encourage losing weight don't work. For most people, we have a very, very backwards way of looking at how to stop kids putting on weight in the first place and how to make sure that people are able to access the things that they need, which include mental health support. I would say a lot of the obesity crisis is actually driven by the crisis of mental health support, and I know that from my own experiences. But
because everybody has an emotional relationship with food.
Absolutely.
And we comfort eat or we reward
exactly.
eat. We boredom eat.
And our relation, particularly women and girls, but this is increasing in boys too, increasingly our sense of our relationship with food becomes almost a battleground rather than simply an understanding of the fuel that we need to live our lives.
Yeah.
And it's very difficult because if you have that kind of troubling relationship with food, it's not like something like alcohol. You can't give up food. So you have to eat. So you have to eat a certain amount. And we just need to find much, much better ways that are non-shaming. I don't believe that the kind of approach of fat shaming works at all. And I can tell you for a fact it doesn't. But we do also, I veer away from the fat acceptance movement because this is unhealthy for people to live overweight. So it's about not treating people about how they look on the outside. I don't care how you look. I care how I look a little bit. I'm not going to lie. But it is about making sure that we are able to live our best, healthiest lives and that ability is available to everybody.
Sam, we've got this funny sort of conflict, haven't we? We've got this body positivity, we're normalising obesity, and yet people might be big and beautiful on the outside, but you know what? Stats like this show with the diabetes, it doesn't work, does it, from a health point of view?
No, it's not good for you. And it's a problem which the Western countries generally are really struggling to deal with. It's not just Britain that's having a large increase. Like this particular figure is showing that we're doing particularly badly, but you can see that across Europe, across the USA, across Canada. And there is a real limit to what you can do with sort of cleverly designed nudges and sugar taxes to kind of shift people's patterns of eating, because fundamentally, we have evolved a certain way, which is to seek out certain rewarding signals in our food, and we now live in a society where this stuff is incredibly abundant and incredibly cheap by historical standards. And we
less so at the moment, but yeah.
You know what? It's a really good point, actually. The government are not backwards at coming forwards when it comes to manipulating us over nudging our behaviour in a green direction or a lockdown direction, are they? They seem reluctant to do it when it comes to our health. Right, thanks, guys. Now, after the break, I'm going to be doing the two-chart challenge. I love this. It's been in high demand for its return. We've got a great debate up for you next about electric cars. Are they actually better for the environment? I will let you know categorically. That's all after your morning's news.
It's 11:34. I'm Rhiannon Jones in the GB newsroom. NHS England has announced its latest data with waiting lists for routine treatment hitting a record high and A&E performances at a record low. 7.2 million people were waiting to start routine treatment at the end of October, and in the same period, just 67% of patients were seen within 4 hours of being admitted to A&E. Ambulance response times have improved on previous numbers, but still sit more than 40 minutes behind the target time of 18 minutes. The government has defended its decision to open the first UK coal mine in 30 years, saying it still intends on phasing out coal. Former COP26 President Alex Sharma says the decision to open the Cumbria colliery is a backward step for the UK on climate action. But the Levelling Up Secretary Michael Gove says it will create hundreds of jobs.
The mine will directly create 532 jobs, which will make a substantial contribution to local employment opportunities, because these will be skilled and well-paid jobs. The employment and the indirect employment that would follow will result in a significant contribution to the local and regional economy, with increased spending in local shops, facilities and services. And in addition, the exportation of some of the coal to European markets would make a significant contribution to the UK balance of payments.
The first episode of Harry and Meghan's new docuseries is out. The Duke and Duchess of Sussex say they want to challenge misinformation around why they stood down as senior royals. Prince Harry says he was concerned for the safety of his family and felt it was his duty to uncover what he describes as bribery within the UK media. The documentary features the couple's first-hand account, personal archive videos and interviews with friends, all filmed before the Queen's death. TV online and DAB+ radio, this is GB News. Here's a quick snapshot of today's markets. The pound will buy you $1.2159 and €1.1583. The price of gold is £1,466.52 per ounce, and the FTSE 100 sits 7,478 points.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates.
Do you not believe in prison?
I don't believe in prison.
I'm completely stunned.
I guarantee you there'll be no spin, no bias, no censorship.
I actually was personally quite offended by it.
And no reason to go to bed.
So I guess they've always been quite woke.
That's Dan Wootton tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Every morning from 6 o'clock, we'll wake you up with GB News Breakfast with all the stories you didn't know from the night before.
So whether it's serious news, entertainment, or your own views from all over our great nation, we're here to kick off your day with a smile.
And the national media should be reflecting and reporting what's happening here.
You will notice the northwestern accents. Whether you're with us on TV, radio, or online, every morning, it's breakfast from 6 a.m. Hope you can join us.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. for Gloria Meets. In exclusive interviews, I'll be finding out who our politicians really are and what they really think.
It's something that you would never want anyone to suffer.
I didn't know what channels there were. B, I didn't think I'd be believed.
I must have weighed about 7 stone and I'm 5'8".
My instincts was to sort of cover this up. I mean, clearly that was a mistake.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello there, it's Eamon Holmes here from Breakfast on GB News. We're not just on your television and your screens, you know.
We're on DAB plus digital radio, so you can listen to your favourite shows on the move.
If you've not yet listened to GB News Radio, it's very simple. We're on your radio player and TuneIn apps, on your smart speaker, phone or tablet, or online at gbnews.uk.
Take us with you wherever you go. GB News Radio.
You never have to miss a moment of the People's Channel.
My name's Tom Harwood and join me 9:30 a.m. every weekday for The Briefing, your one-stop shop for everything you need to know about what's going on in politics today.
I wonder if this is a deal that might need to be like the biscuits in this factory, twice baked. Is there not an opportunity here to win out against the extremes?
Tom Harwood, GB News.
What are you going to do about it?
Things should have been done differently, and they certainly are being done differently.
Don't miss it. The Briefing with me, Tom Harwood, 9:30 Monday to Friday on GB News.
Hello, I'm Simon Evans. Join me on GB News for Headliners at 11 p.m, where I'll be joined by 2 of the country's top comedians as we take a look at tomorrow's newspapers tonight. If it's a big story, we'll be covering it, I guarantee, but we'll also have some fun along the way. That's GB News Headliners at 11 p.m. We won't put you to sleep, unlike some of the other paper review shows out there. So join us, 11 p.m, 7 nights a week.
Welcome back to GB News. It's 11:39. This is Bev Turner today on the radio, TV and online. Right. We have the breaking news of the day. We do that all the time on this show. But there are also these big news questions, aren't they, that are always kind of floating around in the ether that we should really know the answers to. And the one today that I'm asking is, are electric cars actually better for the environment? So this part of the show is my 2-chart challenge, and I get experts, proper experts, not just their opinion, but backed up by actual facts. I know, old-fashioned. So joining me in the studio is Howard Cox, founder of Fair Fuel UK, against electric cars, and defending them is Roger Atkins, founder of Electric Vehicles Outlook. Gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us this morning. Right, Howard, I will start with you. Why is the traditional combustion engine vehicle better for the planet than electric cars?
Well, where do we start? I've got a litany of facts which actually...
Hit me with them, Howard.
Well, there's lots of things. One of the biggest ones is, of course, EVs, when you manufacture EVs, and we should be thinking cradle to grave. We have to accept that electric vehicles are cleaner on the road. There's no doubt about it. There's nothing coming out of it. They have got a tailpipe. There's no emissions. And can I say, this may upset you a bit, but I actually like EVs. I'm quite pro.
I'm all right with that.
But the important thing is we've been actually brainwashed into thinking that the diesel and petrol car is a horrible... But if you take it from cradle to grave, we're looking at something like 75% more carbon dioxide is produced in a production of an electric vehicle. And I've got this particular statistic. Manufacturing average size creates 20 tonnes of CO2 compared to 6 tonnes for comparable modern diesel petrol cars. And that's the point. Modern diesel and petrol cars are evolving. Their clean fuel technology is good for the environment. It's getting better and better and better. So I'm simply saying, from this point of view, is that we've got to be practical. And the only reason why electric vehicles are going to actually be taken up and become more viable is because the government has said they're going to ban diesel and petrol vehicles. Why can't electric vehicles stand on their own 4 tyres?
Right, Roger Atkins, there you go. Come back with your robust defence of electric vehicles.
Well, first of all, I'm delighted to hear that Howard likes electric vehicles. I think he's in some fashion, in some part, a wise man. However, the other parts maybe not so much. Now, he talks about embedded carbon. Let's just go back to a first principle. What we're talking about with the electric vehicle journey is a twin imperative. One of them is indeed to reduce CO2. We have a catastrophic amount of CO2 in the atmosphere, 420 parts per million. First time it's been that way for millions of years. And it's now wreaking havoc on how the climate works around the world. That's one thing. But the other imperative has always been clean air. And therefore, if you look, for example, here in London, NOx, if you look at all the challenges that come out of that tailpipe that I'm glad that Howard mentioned, you've got a big issue. And yes, cars are cleaner all the time. You know, Euro 6 compliance cars are definitely better than Euro 5 and Euro 4 and Euro 3. However, over time, even modern, pretty well-manufactured cars will deteriorate. They won't be looked after in the same fashion. It becomes a 5-year-old car, a 10-year-old car, a 20-year-old car. And then the emissions coming out of that vehicle are not clean. And I would challenge Howard, if he'd like to sit in a garage with me with a car with a combustion engine tailpipe, even a modern diesel car, Euro 6 compliance vehicle, compared to sitting in a garage with an electric vehicle, this is the issue. It's as much about air quality as it is about CO2. So I grant you, and listen, I'm an independent consultant. So I'm not a flag-waving anorak EV person. I actually don't think mass adoption of electric vehicles will be a good idea because owning cars, the inefficiency of parking them for most of the time overnight and during the day just doesn't make sense. That's a big issue, quite frankly. We do need a managed transition. So I'm with you on the point that, necessarily having draconian laws that suddenly say, don't do this, don't do that. I agree with you. Some of this is pretty blunt as an instrument and needs a little bit more of a managed transition. So do you know what? We don't wholly disagree here, Howard. But I would say, please reference the air quality. And a final point I'd say is, you probably know this name, I hope you do. If you think about Ella Kissy Deborah, this is a young girl who died of vehicle pollutant poisoning. She's the first person to have that as a legal case, and her mother's been a great champion of all of this, that illustrates that emissions from cars will ultimately cause, sadly in the case of her daughter, death, but a lot of ill health. Anyway, that's my first opening gambit.
Roger, Howard, respond. Because haven't we got problems with the lithium batteries as well with electric cars? They're not going to be particularly good for the planet, are they?
Well, there's two things here. Lithium is a finite resource for a start. And guess what? In the last year, the price of lithium's doubled. We're in that situation. Just going back to the CO2, I'm fed up with people using the word catastrophic or crisis levels. CO2 is one reason why we're alive today. It's called photosynthesis. The planet is greening because we've got increased levels of CO2. And regarding London, in terms of the emissions coming out there, and get this right, you must get this inside. Everyone listening to this is considering actually the problems of London, because I'm fighting Sadiq Khan on the ultra-low emission zone being moved out to Greater London, to the boroughs. The asthma rate is half that in London than it is outside of London. And people are living longer in London than outside London. It doesn't stack up, this scaremongering things like emissions and all the other bits and pieces. What we should do is allow clean fuel technology to evolve. I want that. I want to breathe clean air. So does every single driver. But one thing is wrong. Stop blaming diesel and petrol, making them the demons, and electric vehicles is somehow an angelic way forward. It's not. The only reason why it's going to go forward is because of this... No, please. The only way it's going forward is because the government's on your side to actually say, let's get rid of diesel and petrol in 2030. It is wrong, and it's been unconsulted and it's undemocratic.
Roger?
Yeah, Howard, it's not on my side. I'm actually an independent consultant. I don't have a vested interest in one particular thing or the other, quite frankly. I'm just, I don't talk, as I mentioned earlier, I'm not a complete anorak for EV. I mean, your business, Ultimum, is focused on having an improvement as a pursuit, as a business, on emissions. So, of course, you've got a vested interest in maintaining petrol and diesel cars. I understand that. That's a commercial reality. But the point about batteries, and you mentioned earlier about, where are we going in the future? The thing about the electric vehicle and the battery isn't a liability, it's an asset. We're very close now to having what they call bidirectional charging. Well, listen to this, Howard. Bidirectional charging will ensure that people can have an energy storage device, the battery in their EV, on the drive that can take cheap electricity at night, store it in the battery and then use it as and when the person doesn't need that full range, because a lot of the range in batteries is far bigger than it needs to. One of the fastest growing companies in the UK is called My Energy. The name gives it away. It's about my energy, not the grid's energy, not Putin's energy, not someone else's energy. It's about storing your own energy. And the electric vehicle battery is going to become a huge asset to the individual, to companies, and the country. It's not a liability.
Well, gentlemen, we thought we could solve it in 1-2 challenge. We clearly can't. We need to come back for round 2 at some point, don't we? But I really appreciate your time, and I learned that people who are into cars don't call it an exhaust, you call it a tailpipe. Marvellous. Right, Roger Atkins, Howard Cox, thank you both very much indeed for joining me. Right, we've got to get back to Cameron Walker. He's on the edge of his seat to tell us what's going on with Meghan and Harry in their docuseries. Cameron, how are you getting on?
Good morning, Bev. Yes, here in the Royal Reaction Room of GB News, watching the first 3 episodes of Harry and Meghan's docuseries on Netflix. I'm joined by a former Buckingham Palace press spokesperson, Dickie Arbiter. Dickie, welcome to GB News.
Thank you.
Put yourself in the shoes of a press officer at Buckingham Palace now. What would be going through your mind?
What would really be going through my mind, we had the 2 trailers in which Harry spoke of a war and spoke of the palaces leaking and individuals leaking. Going through my mind now is we're going to have to wait another week before any of this comes out, because what we've had in the first 3 episodes is all about them, about their romance, about joining the royal family, about attacking the media, the British media that is, and attacking the paparazzi, and sort of taking a few things out of context. But really it's all about them and not about what they sort of promoted in the trailers.
Yeah, they talk a lot about press intrusion, particularly around the time that their relationship was made public. Meghan refers to one of her neighbours being paid to install a CCTV camera to overlook her garden. The difference now, of course, between when Princess Diana was alive and being chased by paparazzi and now, the rules are quite different, aren't they?
The rules are different, and to a large extent, the British newspapers have wound the reels in before they would take anything, because in the newspaper business, it's all about circulation. The bigger the story, the more salacious, the more sensational, the more sales you get. The more sales you get, the more advertising you get, the more revenue you get. Newspapers are struggling, and there are 10 of them on the breakfast table every single morning. So it's a difficult business, and people are switching to online and to social media. So it is difficult. And yeah, there were attacks on the media, but having said that, it is different. But the trouble is that there is, to a large extent, interpretation, and what you can't cut out is social media, what people write on social media. The lawyers will watch what is written in newspapers and say, you can't run that, or you can run that, you're on safe ground. But there's nobody monitoring social media, so social media picks up anybody and everybody, and there's some very vicious people out there.
Harry talks about the fact that members of his own family told him that they experienced what Meghan went through. And, you know, the fact that Kate was the media invaded her privacy. Camilla, Diana.
Well, all the women have been pursued relentlessly. Diana was pursued relentlessly before she got engaged, and once she did get engaged, she was brought in-house, and there was an element of protection. And that happens before the engagement takes place, because there's no way that Scotland Yard or the Home Office is going to provide any form of protection or safeguards until that person becomes part of the establishment. It's a historic thing. It's also financially controlled. We saw that with Catherine. We saw that with Camilla, Queen Consort. We saw that with Sophie Wessex. We saw that with Fergie. But all these women did survive and have survived and doing incredibly well. Unfortunately, Sophie in the old days, and we go back to why they left. They left because they wanted privacy. Well, so much for privacy in this documentary, because we're seeing a lot of family photographs, or we're seeing, albeit the backs of the children, a little bit of side profile, but we're still seeing them. So it's really suiting their agenda.
It certainly is. Lots of private photographs we are seeing there. Well, Bev, when you come back to me a little bit later on, we're going to be talking about why the Netflix producers, Harry and Meghan, decided to replay that very controversial Panorama interview with Princess Diana, which we now know, of course, she was deceived into giving that interview.
OK, thank you, Cameron. Thank you very much. I'm back here to discuss some of the big stories with journalist and playwright Emma Burnell and journalist Sam Ashworth-Hayes. We are going to be discussing the fact that Sadiq Khan's ultra-low emission zone, Sam, is a tax on the poor. This is a fantastic comment piece on Spiked online, written by Andy Mayer, and he's basically pointing out the fact that when this ULEZ zone is expanded from inner to outer London, older vehicles will be charged £12.50 every single day just to drive across London's suburbs. This is ridiculous, isn't it? It's going to come down on mums, van drivers, mums, that's very sexist, parents, van drivers, anyone who has to use a car and doesn't want to buy a new one.
So, I mean, the standards aren't actually that high in some defence of the ultra-low emission zone, and I probably should declare my interest as a non-driver. I get all of the benefits in terms of better air quality and sort of faster travel on buses. I don't have to pay the cost because I'm not going to be driving.
Why don't you drive? I think, are you about 30?
I'm about 30, yeah, 30.
Yeah, you look younger. But why don't you drive a car?
Because I live in London and public transport's very effective. I can get around the place on the tube and on the buses without having particularly any real need to do so.
OK, so you like the idea of people like me trying to get 3 kids to swimming club off the road?
I think it's a... look, we are moving towards a system of road pricing bit by bit here. If you wish to use a road in a private vehicle, then there are externalities in terms of traffic flow and in terms of pollution, which you're sort of inflicting on everyone else around you. And I think the ultra-low emission zone is a way of basically pricing that in. So if you look at the cost of driving and you say, actually, the £12.50 is worth it and sort of paying £5 for the bus tickets is not, then that's your choice to do so. But the fact that the car does sort of pump out these fumes. And again, the standards aren't that high. You can have quite an old car which still meets them. And basically, I think...
I don't know. You know, Emma, I've got friends, because I live in West London where this has been extended to. I've got friends who had a perfectly good car, second-hand car. They've had it for years. They didn't want to renew it. They've had to sell it and buy a new car just in order to go to Sainsbury's.
Well, I imagine that saving £12.50 at the cost of a new car, that doesn't quite balance up.
I know, but
my car, I do drive, but my car doesn't qualify under the ULEZ. I've had it since 2014. I've done less than 20,000 miles for exactly the reasons that Sam's pointed out. There are actually not that many reasons you need to drive in London.
Oh, you do, though. You've not got kids, you two. You don't have to drive
I definitely don't have kids, that is true. But also,
in the rain.
Actually, I was a child in London and we walked everywhere. And that's good for kids. Coming back to our last story, one of the reasons that we're having this obesity crisis, kids don't walk anywhere anymore.
Well, that's also true, but it's just impossible to get around, to do the things you want to do without a car often, even in London. Do you know what? If we had brilliant public transport, I would love that, and we don't. Right. We have been asking you all morning on Twitter, should the Duke and Duchess of Sussex be stripped of their royal titles because of this Netflix series? 90% of you think that they should. How would you have voted in that, guys? I think I've asked you this already. You didn't have an opinion last time.
I have sort of recalibrated. I'm still basically undecided. I would... In terms of the damage he's doing to the royal family, I can see how it would be a fitting response, but also as someone who's a monarchist and a traditionalist, I almost don't want to go through the drama.
All right. Emma, yes or no, strip the titles
Strip every title.
Every
Strip a
title.
lot.
Right, OK, that's the end of the show. It's flown by. Coming up next, it's GB News Today with Mark Longhurst. I'm Bev Turner. I will see you on Monday morning at 10 a.m. Have a great weekend.
Hello, I'm Alex Deakin, and this is your latest weather update from the Met Office. It's cold out there, and it's staying cold even into next week. For many, though, it's a sunny Thursday, a few wintry showers here and there. And wherever we've got any showers, it could be icy. We've got northerly winds. That's the reason it's turned cold, and they're sticking around. Not particularly strong, for most of the winds are quite light, but where those winds are coming into northern Scotland, we've got plenty more snow showers to come through the rest of the day. We'll see a few wintry showers over southeast Scotland, northeast England this afternoon. Snow here mostly on the hills, and a few scattered showers just grazing West Wales, Cornwall and northern parts of Northern Ireland, again with some snow mixed in over high ground. For the vast majority, it's just dry, sunny and cold. 3 or 4. Feels colder in the wind across the north, but actually temperatures in the southwest may get up to 5 or 6. Pretty quickly, though, this evening, the map turns blue. A frost returns once more. A few more of those wintry showers, perhaps a covering of snow in places across parts of northeast England, again, mostly over hills. At lower levels, the snow showers continue in northern Scotland, and icy conditions further west as well, where we keep the showers going as temperatures drop down to -3 to -5, even in towns and cities. Perhaps not quite as cold overnight across the east, where there will be a bit more cloud around on Friday morning, but still potentially quite icy. The showers easing tomorrow across eastern areas, but we'll see more for Northern Ireland, northwest England, North Wales and southwest England. So again, it could be icy here. We have Met Office yellow warnings in place. For, again, the vast majority, it's dry, it's sunny, and it's cold with highs of just 2 or 3 degrees Celsius. And again, on Friday evening, the frost comes back and potentially things are very icy, with a few more wintry showers coming in to parts of the west, southwest Scotland, Northern Ireland, parts of North Wales and northwest England. We'll keep a few wintry showers going this weekend. So we'll keep the cold and frosty conditions, and increasingly we could start to see some dense freezing fog patches too.
Here on GB News Live, we'll be keeping you in the picture, finding out what's happening across the country and finding out why it matters to you. We'll have the facts fast with our team of reporters and specialist correspondents. Wherever it's happening, we'll be there from 12 noon on TV, radio and online. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We are GB News, and we'd like to say thank you to each and every one of you for bringing us your conversations, for helping our great nation find its voice. We are here for you on radio, television, and online, across England, Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland.
It's not the BBC, you actually get your facts right.
We are proud to be